So it's year 2025, and everybody is launching a stablecoin. Today, we're going to talk about why everybody will have a stablecoin. First, in the first 2 quarters of the year, we saw Robinhood, we saw Ripple, and many, many companies launch their stablecoins. So first of all, why do you guys think that is? And one of you built a platform for others to launch stablecoins. That's M0. And Rags, you looked at it and you're like, yeah, I want to launch my own stablecoin.
Yeah, look, I think every business has their own reason to launch stablecoins. I question whether everyone needs their own stablecoin. And for us, even the issue of whether we issue our own stablecoin really wasn't about the stablecoin first, because we wanted our own branded stablecoin. I think that's the main reason that most people are launching a stablecoin. They're like, well, so-and-so has their own brand stablecoin, we need our own brand stablecoin. Actually, for us, what we saw was there was a number of problems which needed to be solved as part of the consumer experience, which wasn't being solved today around how stablecoins function. And I think at the heart of it, there's some very simple things. Firstly, there's too many stablecoins, and so people have to worry about different chains and different stablecoins. But the consumer really just wants a dollar. A dollar is a dollar. I think the second thing is they want some programmability around the stablecoins in terms of yield, potentially as well, whether they want a payment style one or whether they want one with yield. And then the third thing I think is that there's just a lot of things that are inherent to payment networks which are not really programmed within stablecoins today. So for example, if you use a Visa card, you can pre-auth an amount, if you're at a hotel or if you're using an Uber, and then pay a different amount. So we see a lot of, as a consumer-first application, as KAST, we're trying to be a stablecoin bank for the world. We see a lot of these consumer problems which need to be solved. And we thought that the best way to do that was to build our own to solve those problems. And we looked at many, and then we partnered with M0. My friend Joao became the obvious choice.
Yeah, I think I would take a step, or just back into my background a little bit, so people understand why we have this perspective that we have. All of the M0 team is super experienced in the world of stablecoins. As I like to joke, it feels like sometimes stablecoins were invented in last November. Most people know about stablecoins because Stripe acquired Bridge. That's not actually true. We've been in this for 10 years. And I led the build out of USDC, spent 8 years at Circle. And so, there's a lot that has happened in this, what I call this first iteration of stablecoins. Most people, I think, still have the wrong understanding of why stablecoins are useful. They think a stablecoin is something that an issuer, brings to the market and then brings to Binance to get listed over there, brings to Coinbase to get listed over there, and tries to get adoption in all these hundreds of use cases and then makes money out of the reserve. That model is dead. That model is gone. It's not, Circle and Tether are not going to go away, but you're not going to see other issuers grow to that extent. What will happen now is that stablecoins, this V2, this phase 2, is stablecoins are actually going to be the substrate upon which fintechs get built on, right? Because if you guys have ever experienced building a fintech, it's a pain in the ass to have a banking partner, to have payments processing partners. You don't get to use your own risk appetite. You have to share the lowest common denominator. You're not going to be global by definition because all this substrate is like regional, very cumbersome, built in the 70s, all that kind of stuff. Stablecoins are, to us, are money infrastructure. They're dollar infrastructure, so you can build applications on top of it. And if you look at it from that perspective, builders tend to gravitate to customization, right? Nobody likes one-size-fits-all kind of solutions. They want to pick something and then extend it and then customize it and then adapt it to their own use case to make it really appealing for the customer base that they have. And that's the vision that we have at M0, that we are building a platform where builders can come in, customize their stablecoin on top of that platform, not fragment liquidity, and then deliver the best experience for their customers. As Rag said, without customers actually knowing, most of the time they're going to be using a stablecoin behind the scenes.
Totally. I think for traditional fintech, it's almost like you're putting band-aids on Legos that are a century old by now. So whoever's building, like for Rags, you're building a stablecoin bank, which is traditionally would have been built country by country by country.
Yeah.
For the money Legos, what do you guys think about? Like, do you think users will know that people are using KAST dollar 5 years from now, or is this an only on-platform thing, or what is your aspiration for KAST dollar?
I don't think users care.
Yeah.
They just want dollars, and they want to be able to send it to someone. And I think there's many parts of the user experience today with stablecoins, including concepts such as like bridging and swapping and moving between chains and losing, even a few bips along the way each time, which aren't really a part of the user experience. I think one of the reasons why a US dollar stablecoin had a label at the end of it in the early stages was around trust, because there is some things that you want to know. You want to make sure the reserves are good. You want to make sure it doesn't depeg, and there's some basics that need to be in place. But I think if you can have a dollar that, like working with M0, that people may have a KAST dollar on KAST, but they send it somewhere where there's another dollar, and then it becomes that other dollar. Like, we don't actually care. We just want the user to have the best experience. We're not selfish about everyone has to have a KAST dollar. I think, as Joao said, that's kind of a game that Circle and Tether have been playing, of trying to get as big as possible. But now I think it's just that we need dollars to work with each other as seamlessly as possible, so the user experience is fantastic. And I think us and M0 are working on not only the programmability of the dollar, but solutions around liquidity and how do we avoid things like bridging and swapping. And we're going very, very deep with the problems to give the user the best experience.
Speaking of liquidity, most newly launched stablecoins like FDUSD, AUSD, those ones that have their own issuers, often have liquidity challenges because they're maintaining their own liquidity pools against the incumbent, which is USDC and USDT. Joao, how do you guys address the same chain and also cross-chain liquidity fragmentation with M0?
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, this is something that's fairly poorly understood, I think, in the market. While our vision is that we will definitely have more stablecoins than we have today in 1 year time, in 5 years time, we are not advocating for fragmentation of liquidity. I mean, that's obviously a really bad world. I think people think that interoperability that involves price discovery is good interoperability. I think it's really bad interoperability. If you think about the state of the world that we live in stablecoins today, it is actually worse than what we have in the commercial banking system, right? Because when I send you dollars from my JP Morgan Chase account to your Bank of America account, the banks don't need to price discover between one to the other to see how much you're going to get, right? There is interoperability solution that was built over time with clearinghouses, central banks, all of that is money infrastructure, if you will. The same, we're trying to build exactly the same, or a blockchain native evolution of that. So when people build, in an ideal scenario, when people build a new digital dollar form factor, they should mostly be innovating on the behavior side. And I think that's a concept that we have that I think most people don't get it, is that you can actually break a dollar down apart in how you represent it on chain into the value side and the behavior side. The value side is how it's backed, the reserves, all that. Pretty boring stuff. I think we're now past that phase of discussing how that gets done. But the behavior side, you can then customize it, right, as Rags has all these ideas for how to make it super cool within the KAST application. But you can actually have a common layer of liquidity where all these dollars built on top of a platform, they're actually sharing the same liquidity. They're not fragmenting it. And you can actually have a clearing solution on chain that allows you to move from one to the other. And then if you think about just more sophisticated solutions like that, which is something along the lines of what we're building at M0, then you still have a liquidity challenge because you still need to establish liquidity profiles between the core of the M0 platform and everything else that people want to use in the market. But once they are inside this ecosystem, which is equivalent to being inside, let's say, the US commercial banking ecosystem, then liquidity flows much better because there are interoperability solutions that have been established for years. We think it's actually a technological problem more than anything else. We have just not built very sophisticated stablecoins up until now. And I think the next generation will be significantly more tech heavy.
For sure. A lot of these issuers spend months and months investing in technology solutions, but M0 just solves that. Let's talk about the use case of stablecoins. So money has like store value, medium of exchange, unit of account, all that. Different stablecoins are targeting different use cases to fulfill different purposes. And the many stablecoin sponsors at the venue also have their own distribution channels. So for you guys, like for KAST, what would you say is it to improve, in addition to improving user experience in the app, do you think one day people will use it like with the other stablecoins out in the wild that's beyond the M0 ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're so early, right? Like at the moment, there's around $250 billion of stablecoins. There's 22 trillion in M2 money supply. That's onshore dollars. If you add offshore dollars, we're maybe not even at 0.5%, right? And so I don't actually spend my time really thinking about all the other stablecoins and what they're doing with trading applications and all of that other stuff, because I don't know, it seems small thinking, to be honest with you. I like to think much bigger about this, and I think really what the world wants is dollars. I mean, there's at least 2 billion people in the world who want a dollar bank account. Maybe it's more, maybe it's 3, 4, 5 billion people. Pretty much most of Africa and LATAM is dollarized. Large parts of Asia and the Middle East are dollar linked in many ways. But actually, if you look at how many people have actual US dollar bank accounts, okay, in the US, maybe 300 million people, and then outside of the US, maybe another 200 to 400 million people. But the gap between the amount of people that want dollar bank accounts and the people that have them is huge. It's probably like 5 to 10x. And so, to me, that's what we're trying to serve. We're trying to build a consumer banking style experience where we can serve people in 160, 170 countries, and they can have a dollar bank account experience, bridging traditional rails and stablecoins. And that opportunity is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. I really don't care that much for what's happening in the current trading venues or people who are creating a new stablecoin and they partner with an exchange to get a trading pair and pump it to $1 billion or whatever. To me, it's small picture thinking. That's you're looking at the old opportunity. The bigger opportunity is global banking in dollars for billions of people.
And if I can just double click and expand on something that Rag said, I think he's completely right. You know, there's the whole world outside of the U.S. and how people demand dollars and stablecoins as a new piece of infrastructure will facilitate delivering dollars to those people. But I tend to look more from the builder's side as well. Typically, if you're building fintech and you want to build on top of the dollar, or you want to embed the dollar into your application, you know, that was mostly up until now constrained to builders in the US, right? Because you have to have, again, a US-based banking partner or payments processor. All of this tended to be built out of the US. Now imagine that in the next phase, because dollar stablecoins, they are essentially a global piece of infrastructure now, anyone will be able to build a Robinhood that's like dollar-based out of anywhere in the world. Everyone will be able to build an Uber that is like, that has a dollar component to it out of anywhere in the world, a Starbucks, pick your use case. I used to be asked about this back in the early days of USDC when people were kind of cynical about it, like what's the use case for something like USDC? And my answer would be kind of cynical back and would say, well, what's the use case for the dollar? Like the list is really, really long, right? And I think this is going to be like one of those situations where essentially what's happening is the barrier for entry for building fintech in a global way will be lowered, and the developers, I have no doubt that they will be creative enough to apply this in thousands of different ways.
It's not only like a money transmission or a capital moving perspective, but also a capital formation point of view. Now anybody from anywhere in the world can build fintech applications without having banks, and I think that's like what M's tagline, digital building block for developers, is really about. With the little time left, I want to do some lightning round questions. So where do you guys see stablecoins going when interest rate goes to zero? If interest rates go to zero.
Stablecoin, if interest rates go to zero?
Yeah.
I think we always thought, both of us used to work at Circle, that the lower interest rates go, the faster stablecoin growth goes. I think if you're built on needing that money from the interest rates, then you're going to be in trouble. But yeah, I hope interest go to 1 or 2%. It'll be great.
I agree. I think people tend to focus in the last number of months a lot on yield-bearing stablecoins, but that's because the rates are what they are. As I said before, there's still a humongous list of digital dollar applications that are useful for people. And actually, if you think about it, most end users actually do not care about the yield. The folks who actually care about the yield are the builders, right? Because if you're building a payments application, people expect to put some dollars in there and just use for payments. They don't expect it to be yielding anything. But the provider of that application, you bet that they care about how much they are able to monetize that. So I think even with interest rates going down, the interesting thing to me is how builders will be able to attack incumbents in fintech all over the world and be able to build faster, build cheaper, raise money, innovate, the kind of thing that builders want to do, I think, irrespective of where interest rates are going to.
I think last time this year, 2 years ago, we were on some panels when we were talking about if stablecoins were going to make it. But this year, it's very obvious that it's here to stay. It's here to accelerate. It's just a matter of timing. So do you guys see, last question, do you guys see major banks launching stablecoins this year?
Good question. Every VC that I talk to ask me, like, oh, you're going to build a global bank, and what happens when banks do it? And I'm like, well, I mean, my personal view is banks are fucked anyway. So the reason is that they will launch their stablecoins, but they're wrapped in so much red tape around compliance and around so many things that, like, it's still like a side project to them that, someone in marketing will go, oh my God, like, we launched a bank. Do you really think inside your JP Morgan or Citibank or HSBC app, you're going to be able to click there and send a stablecoin to anyone anywhere in the world? You think compliance at HSBC is going to allow you to do that? That's not gonna, maybe in 3 to 5 years, by which time we would have built a lot of great things. So good luck to them. I'm not the least bit worried.
I'll be quick. I come from an engineering background. Unfortunately, if you're a good engineer, you're probably not going to be working at a bank. I don't have a good feeling about their ability to move fast as crypto builders can move. So I don't think anybody will launch anything meaningful this year. And even if they launch subsequently, I think they're on to a really, really rough competitive landscape.
Yeah, it's a great time for innovators to build. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's a great conversation.
Thank you, Anna.